nor yet in any change and mutation of your bodily covering. Where is it then? It is in that part of you that has the power of forming opinions about evil. Let this power, then, not form opinions, and all is well. If that which is nearest to it, the poor body, is cut, burnt, filled with matter and rottenness, nevertheless let the part which forms opinions about such things be quiet. That is, let it judge that nothing is either bad or good that can happen equally to the bad man and the good. For that which happens equally to one who lives contrary to nature, and to one who lives according to nature, is neither according to nature nor contrary to nature. Regard the universe often as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things act with one movement, and how all things cooperate as the causes of all that exists. Observe, too, the continuous spinning of the thread, and the single texture of the web. You are a little soul, bearing about a corpse, as Epictetus used to say. It is not evil for things to undergo change, nor good for things to arise in consequence of change. Time is like a river, made up of events that happen, and a violent stream. For as soon as the thing has appeared, it is carried away, and another comes in its place, and this will be carried away too. Everything that happens is as familiar and well known as a rose in spring and fruit in summer, such as disease and death and calumny and treachery, and whatever else delights fools or vexes them. In the sequence of things, those which follow are always aptly fitted to those which have gone before. For the sequence is not like a mere string of disjointed things, which has only an enforced order, but it is a rational connection, and as all existing things are arranged harmoniously together, so the things that come into existence keep not merely a succession, but a certain wonderful relationship. Always remember the saying of Heraclitus, that earth dies to become water, and water dies to become air, and air dies to become fire, and conversely. And think, too, of him who forgets whither the way leads, and the men who quarrel with what they most intimately commune with, the reason that governs the universe, and think the things they daily meet with are strange. Consider that we ought not to act and speak as if we were asleep, for in sleep we seem to be acting and speaking, and that we ought not, like children who learn only from their parents, simply act and speak as we have been taught. If any god told you that you should die tomorrow, or certainly the day after tomorrow, you would not care much whether it was the third day or the morrow, unless you were completely mean-spirited, for the difference is too small to consider. So think it no great matter to die after as many years as you can name, rather than tomorrow. Constantly remember how many physicians are dead after contracting their eyebrows over the sick so many times, and how many astrologers, after predicting the great to-do, the death of others, and how many philosophers after endless discourses on death or immortality, how many heroes after killing thousands, how many tyrants who used their power over other men's lives with terrible insolence, as if they themselves were immortal, and how many cities are entirely dead. Hellas, and Pompeii, and Herculaneum, and others innumerable. Add to your reckoning all whom you have known, one after another. One man, after burying another, is laid out dead, and another buries him, and all this in a short time. In conclusion, observe always how ephemeral and worthless human things are, and how what was yesterday a little juice, tomorrow will be a mummy or ashes. Pass, then, through this moment of time in harmony with nature, and end your journey in content, as an olive falls when it is ripe, blessing nature who produced it, and thanking the tree on which it grew. Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. Am I unhappy because this has happened to me? Not so, but I am happy, though this has happened to me, because I am still free from pain, neither crushed by the present nor fearing the future. For such a thing might have happened to any man. But every man would not have remained free from pain on such an occasion. Why then is the former rather a misfortune than the latter a good fortune? And do you in any case call that a misfortune which is not a violation of man's nature? And does a thing seem to you a violation of man's nature when it is not contrary to the purpose of man's nature? Well, you know the purpose of nature. Will this which has happened prevent you from being just, magnanimous, temperate, prudent, secure against rash opinions and falsehood? Will it keep you from having modesty, freedom, and every other quality, the presence of which gives to man's nature all that is its own? Remember, too, this maxim on every occasion that tempts you to vexation. This is not a misfortune, and to bear it nobly is good fortune. It is a simple, but still a useful help towards contempt of death, to pass in review those persons who tenaciously stuck to life. What more did they gain than those who died early? Certainly they lie in their tombs somewhere at last. Cadicianus, Fabius, Julianus, Lepidus, and others like them, who carried out many to be buried, and then were carried out themselves. All in all, the interval between birth and death is small. Consider with how much trouble, and in what sort of company, and in what a feeble body, this interval is laboriously passed. Do not, then, consider life a thing of any value. For look to the immensity of time behind you, and to the time which is before you, another boundless space. In this infinity, then, what difference is there between one who lives 3 days and one who lives 3 generations? Always hasten by the short way, and the short way is the natural one. Say and do everything in conformity with sound reason, for such a rule frees a man from trouble and strife and artifice and ostentatious display. 5. Whenever in the morning you rise unwillingly, let this thought be with you: I am rising to the work of a human being. Why then am I dissatisfied if I am about to do the things for which I was brought into the world? Or was I made to lie under the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But that is more pleasant, you say. Do you live, then, to take your pleasure, and not at all for action and exertion? Do you not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants, the spiders, the bees, working together to set in order their several parts of the universe? And are you unwilling to do the work of a human being, not eager to do what belongs to your nature? But I must have rest also. You must. Nature, however, has fixed bounds to this. She has fixed bounds, too, to both eating and drinking. Yet you go beyond these bounds, beyond what is enough. Yet in your work it is not so, and you stop short of what you can do. So you love not yourself, for if you did, you would love your nature and her will. Those who love their own trades exhaust themselves in working at them, unwashed and without food. But you value your own nature less than the carpenter values his craft, or the dancer his dancing art, or the lover of money his money, or the vainglorious man his little glory. Such men, when they have a strong love for a thing, choose neither to eat nor to sleep until they perfect the thing they care for. But is service to society less valuable in your eyes, and less worthy of your labor? How easy it is to obliterate and wipe away every impression which is troublesome or unsuitable, and immediately to be in complete tranquility. Think no word and deed beneath you which is in accordance with nature, and be not diverted by some people's fault-finding, nor by their words. But if a thing is good to do or say, do not consider it unworthy of you. For these other persons have their own guiding principle and follow their own impulses. Do not regard such things, but go straight on, following your nature and the common nature, and the way of both is one. I pass through the things which happen according to nature until I fall and rest, breathing out my breath into that element from which I daily draw it in, and falling upon that earth out of which my father collected his seed, and my mother her blood, and my nurse her milk, out of which for so many years I have been supplied with food and drink, which bears me when I tread on it, and abuse it for my many purposes. You say that you have no keenness of wit. Be it so, but there are many other things of which you cannot say that nature has not endowed you. Show those qualities, then, which are perfectly in your power: sincerity, gravity, patience in labor, aversion to pleasure, contentment with your lot and with little, frankness, dislike of superfluity, freedom from pettiness. Do you not see how many qualities you are immediately able to exhibit, as to which you have no excuse of natural incapacity and unfitness, and yet you still remain voluntarily below what you might be? Or are you compelled, because nature furnished you poorly, to murmur, and be stingy, and to flatter, and to find fault with your poor body, and to try to please other men, and to make a great display, and to be so restless in your mind? No, by the gods, you might have been delivered from these things long ago. But if in truth you can be accused of being rather slow and dull of comprehension, you must exert yourself about this also, not neglecting it, nor yet finding pleasure in your dullness. One man, when he has done a service to another, is ready to set it down on his account as a favor conferred. Another is not apt to do this, but still in his own mind he thinks of the other man as his debtor, and knows what he has done. A third hardly knows what he has done, but is like a vine which has produced grapes, and asks nothing more once it has produced its proper fruit. As a horse when it has run its race, a dog when it has tracked its game, a bee when it has made its honey, so a man, when he has done a good act, does not call out for others to come and see, but goes on to another act, as a vine goes on to produce again the grapes in season. Should a man then be one of these who act thus without being conscious of it? Yes. But a man must observe what he is doing, for it is characteristic of the social animal to perceive that he is working in a social manner, and then to want his companion also to perceive it. It is true what you say, but you do not rightly understand what I have now said. For this reason, you will become one of those I first mentioned, for they are misled by a certain show of reason. But if you will choose to understand the meaning of what I said, do not fear that on that account you will omit any social act. A prayer of the Athenians. Rain, rain, O dear Zeus, down on the ploughed fields of the Athenians and on the plains. In truth, we either ought not to pray at all, or we ought to pray in this simple and noble fashion. Just as we understand when we are told that Aesculapius prescribed for this man horseback exercise, or bathing in cold water, or going without shoes, so we must understand it when we are told that nature prescribed for this man sickness, or mutilation, or loss of something else of the kind. For in the first case, prescribed means something like this: he prescribed this treatment for this man as a thing adapted to restore health. In the second case, it means that which happens to each man is fixed for him in a manner suitable to his destiny. For this is what we mean when we say that things are suitable to us, as workmen say of squared stones in walls or pyramids, that they are suitable when they fit together into a given whole. For in everything there is one fitness, and as the universe is made up of all bodies to be the body it is, so out of all existing causes fate is made up to be the cause it is. Even ignorant people understand what I mean, for they say, this thing befell so-and-so, this then was sent, and this was appointed to him. Let us then accept our destiny, as well as the prescriptions of Aesculapius. Many, as a matter of fact, even among his prescriptions, are disagreeable, but we accept them in the hope of health. Take the performing and accomplishment of the things which common nature judges to be good, as you take your health. So accept everything which happens, even though it seems disagreeable, because it leads to the health of the universe, and to the prosperity and felicity of Zeus. For he would not have brought on any man what he has brought, if it were not useful for the whole. Neither does the nature of anything, whatever it may be, cause anything which is not suitable to that which is under its direction. For two reasons, then, you should be content with whatever happens to you. First, because it was done for you and prescribed for you, and had some reference to you from the beginning, and the most ancient causes spun it with your destiny. Secondly, because even that which happens separately to each individual is to the power which administers the universe a cause of felicity and perfection, nay, even of its own continuance. For the perfection of the whole is mutilated if you cut off anything whatever from the network and continuity of either the parts or the causes. And you do cut something off, as far as it is in your power, when you are displeased, and try to put it out of your way. Be not unhappy or discouraged or dissatisfied if you do not succeed in acting always by the right principles, but when you have failed, try again, and be content if most of your acts are consistent with man's nature. Love that to which you return. Do not return to philosophy as if she were a schoolmaster, but behave like those who have sore eyes and apply a bit of sponge or an egg, or like another who applies a plaster or a water lotion. For thus you will not fail to obey reason, and will find rest in it. And remember that philosophy requires only the things which your nature requires, but you would have something else which is not according to nature. You may object, "Why, what is more agreeable than this I am doing?" But is not this just how pleasure deceives us? And consider whether magnanimity, freedom, simplicity, equanimity, piety are not more agreeable. And what is more agreeable than wisdom itself, when you think of the security and the happy course of all things which result from the faculty of understanding and knowledge? The world is so enveloped in veils that it has seemed to many distinguished philosophers altogether unintelligible. Nay, even to the Stoics themselves it is difficult to understand. And all our views are changeable, for where is the man who never changes? Carry your thoughts, then, on to the objects themselves, and consider how short-lived they are, and worthless, and how they may be the possession of a filthy wretch, or a whore, or a robber. Then turn to the morals of those who lived with you. Hardly is it possible to endure even the best of them, to say nothing of being hardly able to endure oneself. In such darkness and dirt, in so constant a flux of substance and time, and motion, and things moved, what there is worth being highly prized, or even seriously pursued, I cannot imagine. On the other hand, it is a man's duty to comfort himself, and wait for his natural dissolution, and not be vexed at the delay, but rest in these two ideas: first, that nothing will happen to me which is not in harmony with the nature of the universe, and second, that it is in my power never to act contrary to my God and divinity, for there is no man who can compel me to this. About what am I now employing my soul? Frequently I must ask myself this question, and inquire, what have I now in that part of me they call the ruling principle? And whose soul have I now? That of a child? Of a young man? Of a feeble woman? Of a tyrant? Of a domestic animal? Or of a wild beast? What kind of things they are that the crowd thinks good, we may learn from this. If men should decide on certain things as being really good, such as prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, he would not, after having decided on them, consent to listen to anything not in harmony with the really good. But if a man has accepted as good the things which appear good to the crowd, he will yet listen and enjoy as very appropriate the gibes of the comic writers. Thus even the crowd perceives the difference. For were it not so, a gibe against real good would not offend, and would not be rejected, while, when applied to wealth and methods for getting luxury or fame, we accept it as fitting and witty. Go on, then, and ask if we should value and believe those things to be good, to which, when we think of them, we know the jest of the comic writer might be aptly applied, that he who has them, through pure excess of luxury, has not a spot to be comfortable in. I am composed of form and matter. Neither of them will perish into nothingness, as neither of them came into being out of nothingness. Every part of me, then, will be reduced by change into some other part of the universe. That again will change into another part of the universe, and so on forever. And as a result of such a change, I too now exist, and those who begot me existed, and so on forever in the other direction. For nothing prevents us from saying this, even if the universe works by definite periods of revolution. Reason and the reasoning art, philosophy, are powers sufficient to themselves and for their own work. They start from a first principle, which is their own, and make their way to the end which they set before them, and this is why reasonable acts are called right acts, for they proceed by the right road. None of the things ought to be called a man's which do not belong to him as man. Such things are not required of a man, nor does man's nature promise them, nor are they a means by which man's nature attains its end. Neither, then, does the end of man lie in such things, nor that which consummates this end, that is, the good. Besides, if any such things did belong to man, it would not be right for him to despise them and set himself against them, nor would a man deserve praise who showed that he did not want these things, nor would he who stinted himself of them be good, if indeed these things were good. But now the more of these things a man deprives himself of, or of other things like them, or when he is deprived of any of them, the more patiently he endures the loss. To that same degree he is a better man. Such as are your constant thoughts, such will be the character of your mind. For the soul is colored by the thoughts. Color it then with a continuous line of thoughts such as these: that wherever a man can live, there he can also live well. But he has to live in a palace. Well, then, he can live well even in a palace. Again, consider that for whatever purpose a thing has been designed, for this it has been designed, and towards this it is carried, and where the end is, there also is the advantage and the good of the thing. Now, the good for a reasonable animal is society. That we are made for society, I have shown already. Is it not plain that lower things exist for the sake of the higher, and the things which have life are superior to the things which have not, and of living beings the higher are those which have reason? To look for the impossible is folly, and it is impossible that bad men should not do bad deeds. Nothing happens to any man which he is not framed by nature to bear. The same misfortunes may happen to another, who either because he does not see what has happened, or because he wants to show a great spirit, is firm and comes out unharmed. It is a shame to let ignorance and complacency be stronger than wisdom. Outward things cannot touch the soul, not in the least degree, nor have they admission to the soul, nor can they turn or move the soul, but the soul turns and moves itself alone. Whatever judgments it may think proper to make, it makes for itself of the things which present themselves to it. Man is the nearest thing to me, in so far as I must do good to men and bear with them. But when men act as obstacles to my proper work, man becomes to me one of the things that are indifferent, as much so as the sun or wind or a wild beast. These, it is true, may impede my work, but they are no hindrance to my intentions and disposition, which have the power of changing and adapting themselves to conditions. For the mind converts and changes every obstacle to its activity into an aid, so that obstacles to action actually further it, and help us along the road. Honor what is best in the universe. This is what controls all things and directs all things. In like manner, honor also what is best in yourself, and this is akin to the other, for in yourself also it is that which controls everything else, and your life is directed by it. That which does no harm to the state does no harm to the citizen. In the case of any appearance of harm, apply this rule: if the state is not harmed by this, neither am I hurt. But if the state is harmed, you must not be angry with him who injures the state. Show him where his error is. Think often of the speed with which things pass and disappear, both the things which are and the things which are being produced. For matter is like a river in a continual flow, and the activities of things are constantly shifting, and the causes work in infinite varieties. There is hardly anything which stands still. And consider this which stands near you, this boundless abyss of the past and the future, in which all things disappear. Why then is he not a fool who is puffed up over such things, or plagued about them, making himself miserable? For they vex him only for a time, and a very short time. Think of universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible moment has been assigned to you, and of the fate which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are. Does another do me wrong? Let him look to it. The disposition was his, and the activity was his. I have what universal nature wills me to have, and I do what my own nature wills me to do. Let that part of your soul which leads and governs be undisturbed by motions of the flesh, whether of pleasure or of pain. Let it not mingle with them, but let it set a wall around itself, and keep those emotions in their place. But when the emotions rise up to the mind by virtue of the sympathy that naturally exists in a body, which is all one, then you must not strive to resist the feeling, for it is natural, but let not your ruling part add to the feeling the opinion that it is either good or bad. Live with the gods, and he does live with the gods who constantly shows them that his soul is satisfied with what is assigned to him, and that it obeys all the divinity wills, that divinity which Zeus has given every man as his guardian and guide, a portion of himself, his understanding and reason. Are you irritated with one whose armpits smell? Are you angry with one whose mouth has a foul odor? What good will your anger do you? He has his mouth, he has these armpits. Such emanations must come from such things. But the man has reason, you will say, and he could, if he took pains, discover wherein he offends. I wish you well of your discovery. Now you too have reason. By your rational faculty, stir up his rational faculty, show him his fault, admonish him. For if he listens, you will cure him, and have no need of anger. You are not a ranter or a whore. As you intend to live hereafter, it is in your power to live here. But if men do not permit you, then slip away out of life, yet as if you felt it no harm. The house is smoky, and I leave it. Why do you call this trouble? But as long as nothing of the kind drives me out, I stay. I am free, and no man shall hinder me from doing what I choose. And I choose to do what befits the nature of a rational and social animal. The mind of the universe is social. Accordingly, it has made inferior things for the sake of superior, and has tied the superior to one another. You see how it has subordinated, coordinated, and assigned to each its proper lot, and brought together into concord with one another the things which are best. How have you behaved hitherto towards the gods, your parents, brothers, children, teachers, towards those who looked after your infancy, your friends, kinsfolk, slaves? Consider if you have hitherto behaved to them all in such a way that it may be said of you, never has he wronged a man in deed or word. And call to recollection how many things you have experienced, and how many things you have endured, and how the history of your life is now complete, and your service ended, and how many beautiful things you have seen, and how many pleasures and pains you have despised, and how many things called honors you have spurned, and to how many ill-minded folks you have shown a kind disposition. Why do unskilled and ignorant souls confound those who have skill and wisdom? But what soul has skill and wisdom? The soul which knows beginning and end, and knows the reason which pervades all substance, and which through all eternity in periodic cycles administers the universe. Soon, very soon, you will be ashes or a skeleton, a name or not even a name. And what is name but sound and echo? And the things much valued in life are empty and rotten and trifling, like little dogs biting one another, and like children quarreling, laughing, and then straightway weeping. But fidelity and modesty and justice and truth are fled. Up to Olympus from the widespread earth. What then is there now to detain you here, if the objects of sense are changeable and never stand still, and our organs of perception are dull and easily receive false impressions, and the poor soul itself is an exhalation from the blood? But wide repute amid such a world as this is an empty thing. Why then do you not wait in tranquility for your end, whether that is extinction or removal to another state? And until that time comes, what is your duty? Why, what else but to venerate the gods and bless them, and do good to men, and practice tolerance and self-restraint? But as to whatever lies beyond the confines of your poor flesh and breath, to remember that it is neither yours nor in your power. You can pass your life in a calm flow of happiness if you can take the right way, and think and act in the right way. The two things common both to the soul of God and to the soul of man, and to the soul of every rational being, are not to be hindered in their purpose by another, and to hold as good the disposition to justice and the practice of it, and in this to let your desire find its satisfaction. If the fault is neither my own, nor the result of my own badness, and the common weal is not hurt, why trouble about it? What hurt is it to the common weal? Do not be carried away rashly by the appearance of things. Help everyone according to your ability and their fitness. If they have suffered a loss in matters indifferent, do not imagine it to be a calamity, for that is a bad habit. But as the old man, when he went away, asked for his foster child's top, remembering that it was a top, so do you in this case also. When you are declaiming on the rostra, have you forgotten, man, what these things really are? Yes, but they are matters of great importance to the people. Will you too, then, be made a fool for these things? Wheresoever stranded, I can at any time become a man of fortune, for fortune means that a man has found for himself a happy lot, and a happy lot is a good disposition of the soul, good impulses, good actions. 6. The substance of the universe is obedient and pliable, and the reason which governs it has itself no cause for doing evil, for it has no malice, nor does it do evil to anything, nor is anything harmed by it. But all things are made and perfected through this reason. Care not whether you are cold or warm, if you are doing your duty, or whether you are weary or satisfied with sleep, or whether ill-spoken of or praised, or whether dying or doing anything else. For dying is one of the acts of life. It is enough in this act also to do well what there is to do. Look beneath the surface. Let neither the peculiar quality of anything nor its value escape you. All existing things change quickly, and they will either be reduced to vapor, if indeed all substance is one, or they will be dispersed. The reason which governs knows what its own nature is, and what it does, and on what material it works. The best way of avenging yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer. Take pleasure and comfort in one thing, in passing from one social act to another social act, thinking of God. The ruling mind rouses and turns itself, and while it makes itself what it is, and what it wills to be, it also makes everything that happens appear to be what it wills it shall be. In accord with the nature of the universe, every single thing takes place. Certainly it is not according to any other nature that they are brought to pass, whether a nature that outwardly envelops this, or a nature that is included within this nature, or a nature outside and independent of this. The universe is either a confusion, an intermingling of atoms, and a scattering, or it is unity and order, and providence. If it is the former, why do I wish to tarry amid such a haphazard confusion and disorder? Why do I care about anything but how I may at last become earth? And why do I trouble myself? For my elements will be scattered, whatever I do. But if the other supposition is true, I revere, I stand firm, and I trust in him who governs. When circumstances have compelled you to be a little disturbed, return to yourself quickly, and do not continue out of tune longer than the compulsion lasts, for you will be more the master of the harmony by continually returning to it. Suppose you had a stepmother and a mother at the same time. You would be dutiful to your stepmother, but still you would constantly return to your mother. Let the court and philosophy now be to you as stepmother and mother. Return to philosophy frequently, and repose in her, for through her your life in the court becomes tolerable, and you are tolerable to the court. When we have meat before us and other viands, we still have the impression that this is but the dead body of a fish, and this but the dead body of a bird, or of a pig, and again that this Falernian wine is only a little grape juice, and this purple robe some sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. Such, then, are our impressions, and they reach to the things themselves, and penetrate them. So we see what kind of things they are. In just the same way ought we to act all through life, and where things appear most worthy of our liking, we should lay them bare and look at their worthlessness, and strip them of all the worlds by which they were exalted. For outward show is a wonderful perverter of reason, and when you are most sure that the things you are busy about are worth your pains, it is then that it cheats you most. Consider what Crates says even of Xenocrates. Most things which the multitude admire are connected with objects of the most general kind, things formed by bare cohesion, or natural organisms, such as stones, wood, fig trees, vines, olives. But men, who are a little more rational, admire things united by some living principle, such as flocks and herds. Men who are still more instructed admire things inspired by a universal soul, but rational, such as a soul skilled in some art, or expert in some other way, or rational simply as possessing a number of slaves. But he who values a rational soul, that is, universal and framed for political life, regards nothing but this. Above all else, he keeps his own soul in a condition and in an activity right for reason and social life, and he cooperates to this end with men of the same kind as himself. Some things are pressing into existence, and others are hurrying out of it. And of that which is coming into existence, a part is already extinguished. Motion and change are continually renewing the world, just as the uninterrupted course of time is always renewing the infinite duration of ages. In this flowing stream, on which there is no abiding, what is there of the things that hasten by, on which a man would set a high price? It would be as if a man should fall in love with a sparrow flying by, that is already passed out of sight. Every man's life is but an exhalation of the blood, and a little breathing of the air. For, like drawing in the air and giving it back, which we do every moment, the whole quickening power received at birth is now given back to the element whence it came. Neither is transpiration, as in plants, a thing to be valued, nor respiration, as in tame animals and wild beasts, nor impressions from the appearance of things, nor subjection to desire, like a puppet on strings, nor crowding in herds, nor getting nourishment from food. This last is merely an act of separating and parting with the useless part of our food. What, then, is worth your esteem? To be greeted with clapping of hands? No. Neither should we value the clapping of tongues, for the praise of the multitude is a clapping of tongues. Suppose, then, that you have dispensed with the worthless thing called fame. What remains that is worth having? This, in my opinion, to move yourself and govern yourself in harmony with your proper nature, which is the end of all occupations and all arts. For the aim of every art is right adaptation of the product to the end for which it is produced. The vine planter, who looks after his vines, and the trainer of horses and dogs labor for this end. The education and teaching of youth aim also at something. In this is the value of the education and the teaching. And if this is achieved, you will not seek anything else. Will you go on desiring many other things too? Then you will be neither free nor sufficient for your own happiness, nor clear of passion. For of necessity you must be envious, jealous, and suspicious of those who can take away the things valued by you, and plot against those who have them. Of necessity a man must be always in a state of perturbation who wants any of these things. Besides, he must often find fault with the gods. But to reverence and honor your own mind will make you content with yourself, and serviceable to society, and at peace with the gods, praising all they give and have ordained. Above, below, all around are the movements of the elements, but the motion of virtue is not theirs. It is something more divine. Advancing by a way hardly observed, it goes happily on its road. How strangely men act! They will not praise those who are living at the same time with themselves, but to be themselves praised by posterity, by persons they have never seen and never will see. This they set a high value on. But it is much the same as if you should grieve because those who lived before you did not praise you. Because a thing is difficult for you to do, do not think it is impossible for any man. But whatever is possible for any man to do, and right for his nature, think that you can achieve it too. Suppose a man scratches you with his nails in gymnastic exercises, and hits your head, and wounds it. We show no signs of vexation, nor are we offended, nor do we suspect him afterwards as a treacherous fellow. We are on our guard against him, but not as an enemy, nor yet with suspicion, but we quietly get out of his way. Let your behavior be like this in all spheres of life. Let us overlook many things in those who are only like antagonists in the gymnasium, for it is in our power, as I said, to get out of their way and to feel no suspicion or hatred. If any man can convince and show me that I do not think or act right, I will gladly change, for I seek truth by which no man was ever injured. But he is injured who abides in his error and ignorance. I do my duty. Other things do not trouble me, for they are either things without life, or things without reason, or things that have wandered and know not the way. As for the animals, which have no reason, and generally all things and objects, since you have reason, and they have none, use them in a generous and considerate spirit. Treat human beings, since they have reason, in a social spirit, and on all occasions call on the gods, and do not worry yourself over the length of time you shall spend doing this. Even 3 hours so spent are well spent. Alexander the Macedonian and his groom were brought by death to the same state, for either they were received back into the same creative principles of the universe, or they were alike dispersed among the atoms. Consider how many things in the same indivisible time take place in each of us, things affecting the body, and things affecting the soul. Then you will not wonder that many more things, or rather all things which come into existence in the one, and the all which we call the cosmos, exist in it at the same time. If any man should ask you how to spell the name Antoninus, would you shout each letter angrily? What then if he grows angry? Will you be angry too? Or will you quietly tell him the letters? So in this life also remember that each duty is made up of certain parts. These it is your duty to observe, and, without showing impatience or anger toward those who are angry with you, go on your way and finish that which is set before you. How cruel it is not to allow men to strive for the things which seem to them suitable to their natures and profitable. Yet, in a way, you are not allowing them to do this, when you are vexed because they do wrong. For they are certainly moved to do things they suppose to be suitable to their natures and profitable to them. But it is not so. Teach them, then, and show them without being angry. Death is a cessation of impressions through the senses, and of pulling of the strings which move our appetites, and of discursive movements of our thoughts, and of service to the flesh. It is a shame when the soul is first to give way in this life, and the body does not give way. Take care that you turn not into a Caesar, that you are not dyed with that dye, for such things happen. Keep yourself simple, good, pure, serious, free from affectation, a friend of justice, a worshipper of the gods, kind, affectionate, strenuous in all right acts. Strive to advance toward what philosophy tried to make you. Reverence the gods and help men. Life is short. There is only one fruit of this earthly life, a pious disposition and social acts. Do everything as a disciple of Antoninus. Remember his constancy in rational behavior, his even temper in all things, his piety, and the serenity of his countenance, his sweetness, his disregard of empty fame, and his effort to understand things, how he would never let anything pass without having first carefully examined it and clearly understood it, how he bore with those who blamed him unjustly without blaming them in return, how he did nothing in a hurry, how he refused to listen to calumnies, how exact an examiner of manners and actions he was, not given to reproach people, nor timid, nor suspicious, nor pedantic, with how little he was satisfied in the way of lodging, bed, dress, food, servants, how laborious and patient, how he was able, because of his sparing diet, to hold out to evening, not even requiring to relieve himself by evacuations except at the usual hour, his firmness and steadiness in friendship, how he tolerated freedom of speech in those who opposed his opinions, the pleasure he had when any man showed him anything better, and how religious he was without superstition. Imitate all this, and you may have as good a conscience as he had when your last hour comes. Return to your sober senses and recall yourself. When you have roused yourself from sleep and perceived that they were only dreams which troubled you, then in your waking hours look at the things about you as you looked at the dreams. I consist of a little body and a soul. Now, to this little body all things are morally indifferent, for it is not able to perceive differences. But to the understanding all things are indifferent, except its own activities, and these are all in its power. Of these, however, only its present acts matter, for both the future and the past activities of the mind are for the present indifferent. Neither the labor of the hand nor of the foot is contrary to nature, so long as the foot does a foot's work and the hand a hand's. Then neither for man as man is labor contrary to nature, so long as he does the things of a man. And if the labor is not contrary to his nature, neither is it an evil to him. How many pleasures have been enjoyed by robbers, patricides, tyrants? Do you not see how craftsmen accommodate themselves, up to a certain point, to those who are novices in their craft, yet hold fast to the principles of their art, and refuse to depart from them? Is it not strange that an architect or a physician should have more respect for the principles of his art than man for his own reason, which he shares with the gods? Asia and Europe are but corners of the universe. All the sea is a drop in the universe. Athos, a little clod of the universe, the present time a point in eternity. All things are small, changeable, perishable. All things come from that universal ruling power either directly or as indirect consequence. Accordingly, the lion's gaping jaws, and all harmful things like thorns or mud, are the outcome of the grand and beautiful. Do not imagine they are different in kind from that which you revere, but form a just opinion of the source of all. He who has seen the present age has seen all, both all that has taken place from eternity, and all that will be through time without end, for all things are of one kind and of one form. Consider frequently the connection of all things in the universe, and their relation to one another, for things are somehow implicated with one another, and all in a way friendly to one another. For one thing follows in order after another, and this is by virtue of their active movement, and mutual agreement, and the unity of their substance. Adapt yourself to the things among which your lot has been cast, and to the men among whom you have your portion. Love them, and do it truly, sincerely. Every instrument, tool, vessel that does what it is made for is good, though he who made it is not there. But when things are formed by nature, there is within them and abides in them the power which made them. Wherefore the more should you reverence this power, and think that if you live and act according to its will, everything in you is in accord with intelligence. Thus also in the universe, the things which belong to it are in accord with intelligence. If of the things not within your power you suppose some to be good for you and others evil, it must be that when one of the bad things befalls you, or the loss of one of the good things, you still blame the gods and hate men too, whoever are the cause of the misfortune or the loss, or are suspected of being probably the cause, and we do much injustice, because we do not regard these things as indifferent. But if we think that only the things which are in our power are good or bad, we have no reason either for finding fault with God or taking a hostile attitude to man. We are all working together to one end, some with knowledge and design, others without knowing what they do, like men asleep, of whom Heraclitus, I think it is, says that they too are laborers and co-operators in what goes on in the universe. But men cooperate after different fashions. Even those who find fault with what happens are cooperating abundantly. For the universe has need even of such men as these. It remains for you to understand among what kind of workmen you station yourself, for he who rules all things will certainly make a right use of you, and receive you among some group of cooperators, and those whose labors conduce to the one end. But do not play such a part as the mean and ridiculous verse in the play which Chrysippus speaks of. Does the sun attempt to do the work of the rain, or Aesculapius the work of Ceres? And how is it with the stars? Are they not different, and yet they work together to the same end? If the gods have decreed about me, and about the things which must happen to me, they have decreed well, for it is absurd to imagine a deity without forethought. And as for doing me harm, why should they desire that? What advantage would result from it to them, or to the whole, which is the special object of their providence? But if they issued no decree about me individually, they have certainly ordained things for the whole at least, and the things which happen by way of result in the general arrangement I ought to accept with pleasure, and be content with them. But if the gods decide nothing, which is wicked to believe, let us neither sacrifice, nor pray, nor swear by them, nor do anything else we did when we believed the gods were present and lived with us. If then the gods have no care of the things which concern us, I can take care of myself, and I can inquire into what is useful, and to every man that is useful, which is in harmony with his constitution and nature. My nature is rational and social, and my city and country, so far as I am Antoninus, is Rome, and so far as I am a man, is the world. Whatever, then, is of use to these societies is of use to me. Whatever happens to the individual is for the interest of the universal. This should be sufficient. But further, you will observe this general truth, that whatever is profitable to any man is profitable also to other men. Take the word profitable here in the common sense as applying to things of the middle sort, neither good nor bad. Even as it happens to you in the theatre and such places, that the continual sight of the same things, or the monotony, makes the show wearisome, so it is all through life, for everything above and below is the same, and comes from the same. How long, then, to the end? Think continually that all kinds of men, of all kinds of professions, and of all nations are dead, and let your thoughts come down even to Philistion, and Phoebus, and Origanian. Now turn your thoughts to other generations. We, too, must remove to that place where so many great orators, so many noble philosophers, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, Socrates, so many heroes of former days, and so many generals after them, and tyrants, have gone, and in their train Eudoxus, Hipparchus, Archimedes, and other men of keen natural talents, great minds, great lovers of labor, versatile, confident, mockers even of the perishable and ephemeral life of man, such as Menippus and others like him. Consider of all these that they have long been dust. What harm is this to them, or what to those whose names are quite unknown. Only one thing here is worth much: to pass your life in truth and justice, and show benevolence even to liars and unjust men. When you wish to enjoy yourself, think of the virtues of those who live with you. The activity, for instance, of one, the modesty of another, the liberality of a third, and some other good quality of a fourth. For nothing is so cheering as examples of the virtues exhibited in the characters of those who live with us, when they appear in all possible abundance. Wherefore we must keep them before us. Are you rebellious because you weigh so many pounds less than 300? Be not rebellious, then, that you must live only so many years, and not more. For as you are satisfied with the amount of substance which has been assigned you, so be content with the time. Let us try to persuade men to behave reasonably, but for yourself act even against their will when the law of justice directs you that way. If, however, anyone forcibly obstructs you, resign yourself to contentment and tranquility. At the same time, make use of his obstruction to exercise some other virtue. Remember that you made your attempt conditionally, that you did not expect to do the impossible. What then did you expect? To make the attempt as you have done, and you have attained your object, even if the things which you were striving to reach are not accomplished. The lover of fame relies on other men's activities for his own good, the lover of pleasure on his sensations, but the man of understanding knows that his own acts are his good. It is in our power to refrain from any opinion about things, and not to be disturbed in our souls, for things in themselves have no natural power to force our judgments. Accustom yourself to listen carefully to another man's words, and as much as possible be in the speaker's mind. That which is not good for the swarm is not good for the single bee. If the sailors abused the helmsman, or the sick the doctor, would they listen to anybody else? And how then could the helmsman ensure the safety of those in the ship, or the doctor the health of his patients? How many of the people who came into the world with me are already gone out of it? Honey tastes bitter to the jaundiced, and water is horrible to a person with rabies. And a ball is a fine thing to little children. Why then am I angry with anyone? Do you think that a false opinion has less power than bile in the jaundiced, or poison in one who is bitten by a mad dog? No man can hinder you from living according to the reason of your own nature. Nothing will happen to you contrary to the reason of universal nature. What kind of people are those whom men strive to please, and for what objects, and by what kind of acts? How soon will time cover all things, and how many has it covered already? 7. What is evil? It is something you have often seen, and whatever happens, keep this in mind, that it is something you have seen again and again. Everywhere up and down you will find the same things with which histories are filled, in the olden times, in medieval times, and today, repeating themselves in our cities and homes. There is nothing new. All things are familiar, and quickly over. How can our opinions cool down unless the impressions on which they rest are obliterated? But it is in your power continuously to fan your thoughts into a flame. I can have the opinion about anything which I ought to have. If I can, why then am I disturbed? The things which lie outside my mind need have no relation at all to my mind. Be sure of this, and you stand erect. It is in your power to restore yourself to life. Look at things again as you once looked at them, for this will bring you new life. A piece of pageantry, a stage play, flocking sheep and herding cows, exercise with spears, bones cast to puppies, crusts tossed into fish-ponds, the laboring of ants over their burdens, the running about of frightened little mice, puppets dancing on strings, all are the same. Your duty in the midst of such things is to show good humor and not a proud air, and to understand that a man is worth just as much as the things about which he busies himself. In conversation you should attend to what is being said, and in action you should observe what is happening. In the first you should see immediately the end intended, and in the second watch carefully for the meaning. Is my understanding sufficient for this work or not? If sufficient, I use it for the work as an instrument given me by universal nature. If it is not sufficient, then either I retire from the work and give place to one who can do it better, unless there is some reason why I ought not to do so, or else I do it as well as I can, allying myself with a man who, with the aid of my intelligence, can do what is wanted and what is useful for the general good. For whatsoever I can do, either alone or with another, ought to be directed only toward that which is useful and advantageous to society. How many who were once celebrated by fame have now been lost in oblivion, and how many who once celebrated the fame of others have long been dead? Be not ashamed to take help. Your business is to do your duty as a soldier does in an assault on a town. Suppose you are lame and cannot mount the battlements alone. With the help of another you can reach them. Let not the future disturb you. You will face it with the same reason which you now use for present things. All parts of the universe are interwoven with one another, and the bond is sacred. Nothing is unconnected with some other thing, for all things have been coordinated and combined to form the same universe. There is one universe made up of everything, and one God who pervades everything, and one substance, one law, one common reason in all intelligent animals, and one truth. Perchance, indeed, there is one perfection for all beings of the same stock, who participate in the same reason. Everything material soon disappears into the sum of being, and every form is soon taken back into the universal reason, and the memory of everything is soon overwhelmed in time. To a rational being, the act that is according to nature is according to reason. Stand erect, or be helped to stand erect. As it is with members of unified bodies, so it is with rational beings that exist separate, but are designed for cooperation. You will realize this more if you say often to yourself, I am a member of a system of rational beings. But if you say only you are a part, you do not yet love mankind from your heart. Doing good does not yet delight you for its own sake. You still do it merely as an act of politeness, not yet as doing good to yourself. Let accidents happen as they will on the parts that feel the injury, and parts that have felt may complain if they choose. But I, unless I think that the accident is an evil, am not injured, and it is in my power not to think so. Whatever anyone else does or says, my duty is to be good, just as gold or an emerald or purple always says. Whatever anyone else does or says, I must be an emerald and keep my color. The ruling mind does not disturb itself. Does not frighten itself or cause itself pain. If anyone else can frighten or pain it, let him do so. The mind itself, of its own judgment, will not turn to such ways. Let the body take care, if it can, that it suffers nothing, but let it speak if it suffers. But the soul, the seat of fear and pain, has full power to form an opinion about these things, and need suffer nothing, unless at times it deviates into such an opinion. The mind in itself wants nothing, unless it creates a want for itself. Therefore it is both free from perturbation and unimpeded, if it does not perturb and impede itself. Happiness is a good divinity, or a good thing. What then are you doing here, O imagination? Go away. I entreat you by the gods, as you did come, for I want you not. But you are come as you have been used to do. I am not angry with you, only go away. Is anyone afraid of change? Why, what can be done without change? What is more pleasing or more suitable to universal nature? Can you take a bath unless the wood undergoes a change? Can you be nourished unless your food undergoes a change? Can anything else useful be accomplished without change? Do you not then see that for yourself also change is the same, and equally necessary for the universal nature? Through the universal substance, as through a furious torrent, all bodies are carried, while by their nature united with and cooperating with the whole, as the parts of your body do with one another. How many a Chrysippus, how many a Socrates, how many an Epictetus has time already swallowed up? Apply this same thought to every man and thing. One thing only troubles me, that I may do something which the nature of man forbids, or in the way it forbids, or at a forbidden time. Soon you will have forgotten all things, and soon all things will have forgotten you.